You have to have experience handling horses to be able to drive horses. Yeah, you can take an old broke team and drive them around if you've never driven anything before, but sooner or later something's going to happen if you're not aware of everything that's going on around you. We've been lucky. We've had guys come and help us like this fall with teams. Art Cox come, he's been here before 20 years ago with the same team of horses.
How many years have you done this, Glenn, at our place, do you know? Like,
I was trying to think of that the other day. It's got to be 30 years.
yeah.
Going back helping Ralph?
Yeah. A fellow by the name of Ralph Loosemore used to do this for us, and Glenn kind of took his spot. And he worked for TELUS for years. He used to play hooky all the time. Come here.
But there was other people that had never been here before, and everything worked out just fine. The horses worked well, the men knew how to drive, they knew how to work around a thrashing outfit. The people that come with horses, it's a chance to get to use their horses and get them to do something useful. And it makes better horses out of them. After one day, you can tell the difference on those horses.
Robin himself, though, at one time, he had 20 head of draft horses here when I was growing up. And those are probably some of the first recollections of the horses on the farm here.
I sold the last team of horses that my father owned. When I took the farm over after he had died, there was still one team here, and they were getting on in age, and we weren't going to get much work out of them anymore. And so I sold them off, but only lasted about a year, and we had a real tough winter, and I couldn't get the tractor started to feed the cows. And I remember there was a guy by the name of Bill Perry, who was a horse dealer in Calgary, and I'd heard that he had a team of horses for sale. So I drove into Calgary, and he had a feedlot down in southeast Calgary somewhere, and he had this team of horses there. I bought that team of horses, and that was the winter of 1969 when I bought them. So yeah, I didn't go too long without horses around the place, and that was the beginning of buying more horses after that. Somewhere along the way, I heard about a man by the name of Fred Mattis out in the Castor country, and they said Fred's got horses. He's always got horses for sale. So anyways, the neighbor Balser Smalls and I, we drove out to Fred Mattis's farm one day. It was in January. So I picked out 4 horses. And he said, I'll have them in on such and such a day. And so anyways, we left it at that. And when the time come to go back and pick the horses up, he had them in the yard. He had them in the corral. But they weren't haltered yet. And he claimed they were halter broke. Well, halter broke in one man's idea is different than another man's idea, I can tell you that. Anyway, we ran these horses into a chute, and it had Dutch doors on the front of it. I remember that yet. That means there was an upper and a lower door, and he had the 2 doors closed when he'd run them in, and then he'd open up the top door, and the horse would stick his head out, and we'd put the halters on that way. That's how we got them haltered. But the last horse we ran in, the horse up and reared up in the chute and put his leg out over the front of the chute with his front foot, and he struck me right on the shoulder. Old Fred never even batted an eye. He turns around and looks at me and he said, see, he said he likes you. And, so anyway, we got these horses loaded, and got them hauled home and put them in the barn and tied them up in the stalls in the barn. About an hour later, they were all running around the yard, dragging the stalls around the yard. They tore the stalls right out of the barn. But anyway, we did finally get them broke and get them haltered up and harnessed up, and I used them quite a bit. Those 4 horses, I got quite a bit of use out of them. Okay, well, we were just talking about these horses that pulled the mangers out of the barn, and the one horse, we named him Big Jake. He was a great big guy, but he was not a bad-natured horse. He was just a horse that you could never tie up in a barn. Every time you tried to tie him up, he'd either tear the halter shank off or break the halter or something like that. And we tried every trick that anybody ever told us how to break a horse that they wouldn't pull back in the stall. And we finally just gave up. And we just never tied him up anymore. And he'd stand in the stall all day long as he wasn't tied up. And once in a while he'd back out and have a look around, and then he'd walk right back into the stall again. And he ended his days here that way. We never bothered to tie him at all. So, sometimes I guess you have to use a little psychology on these guys.
When I was a kid, I remember in my mind, I remember hearing the horses coming into the yard, and I could hear the sound of the harness clanking and the sound of the wheels of the implements on the ground. The horses were coming in, and then I remember I'd be at the house, and so I'd run to the barn, and then the horses would appear, and then the men would unhitch the horses and drive them to the barn. And once they got them to the barn, they would untie the horses from each other, and then just let them go. And then they'd walk up to the water trough and they'd have a drink. And then from the water trough, once the horses were done drinking with their bridles on, the horses would walk into the barn all by themselves and walk into their right stall all by themselves. And I always found that amazing as a kid. And the influence thing, I think, sure helped me to grow up with the horses here, working them and in the field and stuff. And but I also believe that you have to be born with the horse bug. And basically that's in a nutshell, that's how I grew up. And so the first time I remember driving horses from a dad was at a thrashing, and I believe it was 1988 or 1987, 1988. I got the opportunity to drive a bundle wagon. So anyways, that was pretty exciting for me at that time, because I always wanted to join the men, and I was old enough then, and I don't know, I might have been 12, 13 years old, and it was a good old team we had, and the name of the team was Annabelle and McGee, and they were so good. You could say whoa, you didn't have to even pull on the lines, you just say whoa and they'd stop. But they made it into the Calgary Stampede Parade quite a few times. People aboard them, and several other parades around Alberta, so they were a good old team. And so that year, that was my first year, 1988. At that point in time, my dad's horses were getting older, and he was kind of getting out of the horses, and I was taking charge, I guess is what you would say. I decided that I wanted a team of my own, but I wanted a team of registered Belgian horses. So the opportunity came around, and a fellow that worked for my dad on and off and always brought horses to our thrashings and haying events was Peter Nowakowski. He was raising Belgian horses up there by Acme, and I asked him if I could buy a team of his Belgians, and he said sure. And Pete was quite a character, He always had a way of cracking a joke, and a real good horseman. And he sold me this team of Belgians, and it was for so much money and for so much grain. Well, I didn't own any grain, so I had to rob some grain out of the grain bin from my dad. But anyways, we made this horse trade, and I got these two mares, and that was the foundation of my horse herd. And so I had these two mares, and I raised quite a few colts out of them. Glenn Castleman and me, we ended up buying a stallion together. And that stallion actually belonged and was raised from Ralph Loosemore. That's where all my Belgians come from, was from Ralph Loosemore stallion and Peter Nowakowski's mares. And two of the best horsemen that I know of. Their demeanor, them horses, were so well, and their bone structure and everything. They're beautiful horses, and their thick manes, and so when I combined the two people's herds together, basically, and made my own herd, I guess is the best way to describe it. And so from then on, so I raised probably, I don't know, there would be 10 or 12 colts there from them mares, them foundation mares. They were better natured horses, these ones of mine, than my father's horses. Just the temperament of that stallion I bought, he was a very nice horse, and the mares that I bought were very, very nice natured horses. And yeah, I can see that in my colts now today, that they're willing to work with you, where like my dad's horses, I just remember, I was young, but I remember they had a lot of, they had some problems with them. They had to really work them down, which also, maybe because other men were driving them all the time, where I've only handled my own horses, which probably has helped too. So the most important part of harnessing horses is brushing the shoulders. You don't have to brush the rest of the horse necessarily, but you got to brush the shoulders because that's where all the work is being done. There's a reason why I do that. So I had a bit of dilemma this year when it come to picking the horses that I was going to use. I had to take 4 horses and put them on a cultivator. They were all young horses, and pick one because I lost a horse last year, the mate to the mare that I drive on the left. So what I did was I drove them for 3 days and I picked the best one that I felt that would work for our thrashing, and I think I made the right choice. His name's George.
So George has never seen this before, huh?
No, you can sure tell. It'll be interesting the first load today, because I'm already loaded, so. Ain't quite major, eh? He's trying hard though. So typically I start all my colts this way. This technique is called hobbling. Teaches them good manners, how to stand while hitching and unhitching. So once I'm up on the rack, I'll have somebody take the hobbles off for me.
How's George doing, JR?
He's doing really good. I wish we could thrash another 2 more days. Because when we first started on Friday there, we just run the stoop loader by itself out in that 30 acres. And then the first time I pulled up beside him, this horse reared up and bolted. He bolted maybe 10 feet. And then I got him pulled back in and he calmed right down. And we did 1 lap around a 30 acre field. And then he settled right in after that. But he was on, my arms were sore the first round around that field, I'll tell you. But then after that, he was good. He kind of settled down, and they just got to get used to things.
Yeah, Dad's Day, they threshed for a couple months. So those horses were broke.
Yeah, sure makes a difference, even 3 days. She's done it her whole life, but she's a cantankerous old mare, and she knows what she's doing, and sometimes she's worse than him, but she's just feeding off him and trying to make it her own situation. But it's not that she doesn't know what to do. She just cranky old mare. Go. Go. Hey, George. Yeah, that mare, she's just being a mare. Slowly fading this way, thinking, oh, if I just sneak over this way, maybe I can go. He knows better. And actually, he's doing a lot better than her a lot of the time, you know. Like if I could get 2 more loads in, or even another load, I'm sure I could hang my lines up on the peg and start pitching, but by that time we'll be done the field. That's why I said if the guy thrashed 3 days, it'd be a lot better than just 1 or 1.5.
Just practicing a green team, going to drive them in past the steamer and the separator just to get them used to the noise and the clutter and everything. It's always trouble getting new teams. Get up, get up.
Now, Fred, has either one of these horses been here before?
No, nope, they've never been into the separator. Well, I've got a 20-year-old quiet horse on the left, so I'm hoping that he'll come in all right. But once it's running, it's quite a clatter. Whoa, boys, whoa, whoa, whoa. Stay there, whoa. This is going to be trouble. I'll have to be hanging on to them. What we did at home one time was tie them to the grain tank, shut the separator on, drive them in and tie them to the grain tank, but that doesn't work so good either. Then they're not used, better off to get them used to the clutter when they drive in. Whoa, I'll go around again, and he gets it running and bring him in again. Must have had some trouble there, or some adjustments to do. Get up, Shadow. Get up. The horses didn't stand very good, and I should have an overcheck on them. They want to put their head down and get tangled up and fuss, but I think when they get tired, they'll come down and be pretty good.
You got through it.
Got through it, yeah. A good man on the front hanging on to them. That's really important.
Yeah. Tired, Fred?
Oh, they're just cranky. They're tired. One's ornery, they want to go home.
And he's talking about the horses too.
Yeah, they need to be a lot tighter to stand good. They're just fussy.
Still.
Yeah, they're a bit spoiled. They're not used enough.
Yeah. That's what JR was saying. If we could just have a couple more days with them.
Yeah. Got 2 more days, and then you see pictures of the old thrashing machine, the horse is standing there sleeping right beside the separator. And that's what long days of work does, but when they're not used, they fuss for the first while.
Yeah. JR said that he broke a couple of your horses there?
This one, and this one was all JR. Yep. Ginger, Shirley, and Dixie.
So it's your first time? What do you think you're doing?
Oh, this is neat.
Yeah, it's great. I have old home videos of my grandpa doing this like in the 80s and 90s, and I thought, oh, I get to go do it now, so it's pretty cool. So happy to be here for sure.
That's an experience that you only see once or twice. Most people never see it.
No.
A little tired. She's cranky. She's old. She's almost at retirement stage. I'm glad I had her because I got a bunch of young ones right there. There's 3 there anyways. There's a couple older ones, but there's 3 there that I've now started well, and they just need to be seasoned. And this horse here, she just loves putting her head down with a collar.
Does she?
Oh,
Loosens it off.
when I harness this horse, I gotta tie a knot in it like this.
Oh, you do.
Otherwise, the time you get the harness out here, the collar's already on the halter shank, so I always tie it with her hair. So it's just smart that way. But I've started all my colts with this old mare over the years, but she's getting to the point where she's getting pretty old cranky. Georgie did very well for his first thrashing, first real working actually, other than the cultivator. He's got the right nature. I called him my Walt Disney horse because he just had the right mindset even when he was young. And the reason why I call him the Walt Disney horse, I was at Walt Disney one time and they had a horse that just looked just like him, and they had these trolley cars and people everywhere, and this big old horse is pulling this trolley car. It just broke to death. It looked a lot like him, so I call him my Walt Disney horse. Slide it over your left arm as you walk back, and then the britchin. That looks close enough. Here, Terry, hang the hames up first. I know it's heavy. I can help you if you want. There you go. Hang them up first.
We have a big tangled mess up here.
I think we already do.
There'll be some for you to do later, you know?
Okay, so you got it twisted. So what we'll do is, right side. This is the right hand. You can go like there. Now we're square. Okay, never hang the back pad. You get a crease in it. Just all you got to do is just hang that up and let the britchin hang.
Okay.
There you go. We'll grab the next one and see if you do any better.
We'll see.
Watch this, Sherry. Okay, so once you undo this, like this, grab it like this, pull it towards you,
Oh, I see.
throw your arm in it like this, or your hand, walk back to this one, put your arm in it, and then the next one, and then just walk that way and it'll stay, without getting tangled up. Yeah. Yeah. One more. There you go. Now stop right there. What I do is throw that like that. And now I go back because I'm right-handed. And I go like this and I grab the hames. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Hang the hames first. Walk backwards now, so you get it straight. Now all you gotta do is hang that part. There.
Way easier.
It's a little tricks.
Consistent, right?
Yep.
Makes a difference.
That's a pony harness I built, Doug.
Oh.
Miniature pony harness. That's my first harness I ever built.
Oh, for your little one.
For my little one. So now that I've built this, I know how to go about it. So all I gotta do is I built the dies and everything for this.
Really?
So now I'm going to build the dies for heavy harness. It actually was harder to scale it down.
Yeah. That's what I was
But
thinking.
like look at the little collars. Look at the collar difference. Big draft horse to a mini.
Yeah.
But the same collar maker, eh? These were really good collars, long straw collars. But yeah, he made a Ezra Streicher out of Milverton, Ontario. One of the best collars around. Why I like him is because he puts this in it. And over time, this will flatten out and your hames will fall off. So he built this raise here and they never come off even when they get older.
Wow.
He's the only guy around that did that. So you always hang your collars like this, Sherry. So this is left-hand horse hanger. But you hang it so it dries out
Right.
and upside down to keep its shape. That's why you hang them like that. Just like that.
And so you've got a pad on the one, but not on the others? Or
Yeah. Just to fit the horse a little bit better. She's gotten older and thinner in the neck, so I had to put this pad here. And these are non-skulled pads where it's a vinyl, so they don't chafe their shoulders.
So the old mare gets a treat for.
Yep.
Some of the oats that you that you just threshed.
Well, that way they get to know it's not so bad. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming and keep keeping the traditions alive. I know it's a lot of work. We worked a month on this, getting wagons ready and equipment and horses. The biggest part of it is lining up the people and on the phone, and it's a big deal to organize nowadays. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming, and hopefully we'll do her again in the future. So thanks.
It's been a lot of work and challenging, you know, over the years. A lot of work, a lot of maintenance, a lot of money. But you know, honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way, because this is a special farm.